Good evening and welcome to Unit 4, Lecture 1 of Environmental Earth Science on weathering. And in this case, weathering processes. And these hopefully will be some pretty quick, short little lectures that you may know some of the stuff from before, and you may not. So we'll start out with weathering. Weathering is a natural process. All right, very important natural process, and it causes rocks to decompose from various atmospheric and environmental agents. All right, we're looking at wind, rain, temperature changes, people, animals. There's a lot of different things that can cause rock to break down. All right, so really weathering, another way of looking at it, is the breaking down of rock. All right, makes sediments out of the rock, which then get transported somewhere and compacted, cemented together, become a sedimentary rock. All right, so this is kind of the start of that whole making a sedimentary rock process. There are two main types of weathering. There's mechanical weathering, and this comes from physical means. If you think about physical changes, those would be classified as mechanical weathering, and chemical weathering, which comes from some sort of chemical reaction. All right, different types of weathering affect different rocks differently. All right, that shouldn't make anyone be really surprised right there. The main issue of this lecture, however, is going to be the mechanical weathering, that physical weathering, those breaking down by a physical means, some kind of physical change. And because of that, the rock composition does not change. If you're breaking down granite, it remains granite. If you're breaking down sandstone, it remains sandstone. If you're breaking down gneiss, it remains gneiss. And maybe even nice and pretty if it was a nice, pretty rock to begin. Okay, bad joke. Anyway, going on. So, the major agents of mechanical weathering can be remembered by GWIPA. All right? GRWIPA. GWIPA. All right? And that has to do with, or that stands for gravity, running water, wind, ice, plants, and animals. All right, and all of these, again, affect those physical changes of rocks. Physical changes and mechanical weathering. They all go together. That's a big thing to remember right there. All right, we're going to start off by hitting up abrasion. And abrasion can be caused by gravity, running water, or wind. All right, and that's why it's GRIPA or GWIPA, GRWIPA, because these three go together. Abrasion is the rubbing together, the grinding and wearing away of rock. All right, rubbing together. All right, you got that nice grinding and that grinding motion where rock particles kind of smack into each other or are grinding against each other. And it could be caused by gravity, by a rock falling down a hill and tumbling and breaking off other pieces of rock. That would be gravity abrasion. Running water is like little pebbles in a stream that is moving. As they roll across other pebbles, little tiny microscopic pieces of the rock start to break off. That's water abrasion. And then wind abrasion is like sandblasting. Like if it's windy out in a place where there's a lot of sand, a desert maybe, the sand hits the rock and causes the rock little tiny microscopic pieces to break off into more grains of sand. And that is all abrasion. All right, so here, this picture, we just had this big rock fall down. That is gravity weathering. Here we have looks like a rock slide or something. If you stand up here and throw a rock down the hill, it's going to bump into the other rocks and break apart and everything. Running water can leave behind mud cracks, sand dunes. Here we have looks like a stream has flooded, and left behind sediments and deposits, and that's stuff that it picked up from the surrounding earth, and that all used to be rock. Kind of gets left there, and as the water's flowing, the rocks are tumbling over each other and hitting each other, and that causes, again, some more abrasion. Wind weathering, here we have sand dunes, and this is just the sand. If it gets picked up and blown into each other, that takes care of the whole idea of the wind weathering and the wind abrasion. All right, we see this a lot in the western U.S. Red Rock Canyons in Arizona, beautiful red rock, like towers and forms and everything, and it all came mostly, or at least over the last couple of thousand years, from wind erosion and little sand grains beating against it. It's a lot like I said earlier, sandblasting the rock. And you can sandblast something to strip paint off a wall or a piece of metal or like a car door or something. If you ever watched one of those restoration shows, they use sandblasting to kind of get rid of old paint. It's the same type of thing. You can do that to rocks and gets rid of those outer layers of rock. The next one is ice wedging. This is one we know really well here because we have a cold climate, or at least a climate that alternates hot, warm, and cold. All right? Alternating freezing and thawing. All right, causes a lot of ice wedging. So the water seeps into the cracks and freezes. And if you've ever left a can of Coke in your trunk, put a full plastic can of water in the freezer, you see it cracks it because water increases its volume. And so water freezes, increases volume, and will split the rock apart. All right, this crack right here in the rock was caused by ice. Water would get in there, freeze, and then the rock would start to split away. Some of it would go this way, other parts of the rock would be dragged the other way. All right, so you'd have the rock go that way and that way as the water froze, and eventually that rock will be split totally in half, and these other little cracks will also start to get bigger as more water seeps in, and then it freezes and then it thaws. Organic activity. That's activity from life. Organic, think life. We talked about that in the mineral unit, that organic materials came from living things. All right, so plants and animals can also be agents of mechanical weathering. All right, plants' roots grow and expand to create pressure, and they wedge the rock apart. They go into those same cracks that might have originally been formed by ice wedging. All right, and so the roots go in there and get bigger and break the rock apart. Some animals, earthworms, other animals, we'll go with woodchucks, chipmunks. All right, burrowing animals move soil, expose new rock surfaces, and that makes those rocks more vulnerable to mechanical weathering. And as they're scraping away and hit a rock, maybe with their nails or their claws or whatever, I mean, not an earthworm. I don't know many earthworms that have claws. That would just be scary. But like a chipmunk or a woodchuck, if it's a burrowing animal or a mole or something hits the rock, it might break off little tiny chunks of that rock. You gotta kind of watch out for that kind of stuff. All right, so here's a little prairie dog, woodchuck. I don't know what really animal that is, but let's call it. It's too cute to be a woodchuck, so I don't know. But it could be digging the hole. It's exposing new rocks, breaking things apart. And then here is that beautiful picture of plant activity. We got the roots around the rocks growing in crevices and holes and cracks of the rock. And it's breaking that rock apart. That is it for the mechanical weathering lecture. So as always, if you have any questions, bring them in. Ask your teacher. We'll be happy to answer the questions for you. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.